Welcome to the Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the Seattle Times flat out lied in an article today demonizing Seattle firefighters. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
There's ignorance. There's willful ignorance. Willful ignorance is not that you're stupid about a subject. It's that when you don't want to know about a subject because it might destroy your narrative. We'll talk about this more when it comes to the Seattle Times later about their terrible reporting. But for right now, let's talk about the argument that I still see happening in MAGA circles and I still see happening online. So yesterday, I posted the entire rant I did yesterday describing all the times Iran had attacked the U.S. and said, we're not being drawn into a war with Iran. We're already in a war with Iran. Except the only ones acknowledging it is Iran, who say death to America every 5 minutes. But people on our side of the aisle want to make it seem like there's going to be boots on the ground. Hey guys, you've been sitting on that couch for a while. You're not going to war. You've been sitting behind that keyboard a while. You ain't going to war. Marjorie Taylor Greene, nobody's sending you to war. Not you, not Tucker Carlson, not Steve Bannon, definitely not Matt Gaetz, not sending any of you guys to war. Okay? Chill out. Now, President Trump has been very, very consistent about his messaging on this. Israel is kicking Iran's butt. America, are they going to help out? Are they not going to help out? Well, we know that two B-2 bombers were actually leaving where they are stationed here in Louisiana, and they flew somewhere. We don't know where they went. We know that the Ford Carrier Group is now also on the way to the Persian Gulf. By the way, I love that the Ayatollah is tweeting. I love that he's tweeting, we're going to destroy you. We're going to kill you all. We're going to destroy Israel. We have air superiority over Israel. Okay, do you know what else they tweeted? They tweeted an AI image of a crashed B-2 bomber. One reason I knew this thing was AI generated was because normally when you shoot something down out of the sky and its entire wing is missing and its entire tails are missing, you don't have time to lower your landing gear and land in a desert on sand perfectly. That's one way I knew this thing was AI generated. But number two is the proportions are all off. These guys look like they're standing next to those little fighter planes that they used in the last Pierce Brosnan James Bond movie where him and Halle Berry go out the back on those little wingy things. It's about that big. I'm like, the B-2 bomber is a lot bigger than that. Maybe the bomb itself is the size of the plane in that picture. Yes, we're fighting a war with AI-generated images, or we're fighting a war against an enemy who's fighting us with AI-generated images because we blew up their F-14 Tomcats, which haven't been used in 20 years.
Oh, man, Ari, you got to check out some of the replies to that particular tweet that we're talking about, because like this meme has gone viral. I saw one where somebody AI'd a aircraft carrier in the middle of the desert. Oh no, they got the Nimitz too. Oh no.
The one I liked was the one a couple days ago where they said, yeah, we took out an F-35, one of Israel's F-35s, and the plane is the size of Iran on the map. It's ginormous. We took out one of your F-35. No, you didn't. So the main one this is based on is it's taking up the entire Sinai Peninsula. I think there's these little Putians standing around this giant airplane. So people have been superimposing images. Oh no, you captured our giant sea slug. Oh no, you captured the Nimitz. Oh no, you captured Giant Man.
Oh no, they got the International Space Station
right.
too.
They're just throwing things on there, whatever they can think of. They're just throwing the stuff on there. Yes, this is crazy. Iran is on the ropes. Iran is about to be done and overthrown. In fact, Israel today bombed the Tehran police station. Why would you bomb the police station? Do you know why? Specifically so that you don't need American boots on the ground. The police would be sent in to quell any uprisings. So what happens is, and their police aren't our police. It's not Back the Blue in Iran. Those are the people who help oppress you. So why would Israel bomb the police station? So that way the Iranians can rise up against the Ayatollah and nobody will stop them. That's so that Israel and America don't need boots on the ground. But the best symbolism for this was President Trump. So today, President Trump is out on the White House lawn, and they are installing one of the 2 American flag giant flagpoles that President Trump has paid for himself to spruce up the place. Every president puts their own little touches on the White House, and for Pride Month, he puts up giant American flags. I love it. Fantastic. I have one complaint, though. And some of you are going to say, Ari, you're being nitpicky. So the place where they put it, it kind of messes with that view we're so used to of the White House, where you see the columns and, you know, we're zooming in on the White House now. It's smack dab in the middle of that, but I think that was the intention, to say, here's the giant American flag in front of that view you all use on camera. Hey, who installed that flagpole? Oh, wait, it was President Trump. And President Trump is wearing a brand new, shiny, white, Make America Great hat with the American flag on the side, and he's shaking hands with the workmen, and he's giving an impromptu press conference. So in the background of them installing a giant American flag, he's talking about how America helped defeat the Ayatollah.
What do you say to the Supreme Leader of Iran who said that they will not surrender?
Say good luck.
So if you didn't hear that, it was, what would you say to the Supreme Leader of Iran if he's listening right now? And Trump says, good luck. Just good luck. Trump was full of Trumpisms today. It was glorious.
What gave you the idea to do this?
I've had it for a long time. The first time I had it, but you know, you guys were after me. I said I had to focus. I was the hunted, and now I'm the hunter. It's a big difference. Big difference.
I was the hunted, now I'm the hunter. I love it. Between that and the good luck, it's like he's reading lines from Taken, right? When he says, when that bad guy says, good luck. This is peak Trump. Peak Trump. I love it. Oh, but Mr. President, shouldn't we have had a deal? Shouldn't you have made a deal with Iran?
Look, they should have made the deal. I had a great deal for them. They should have made that deal. 60 days we talked about it, and in the end, they decided not to do it, and now they wish they did it. And they want to meet, but it's a little late to meet, but they want to meet, and they want to come to the White House. They'll even come to the White House. So we'll see. I may do that, but it's a shame it could have been done the easy way.
Do you know the pictures of the heads of Japan surrendering on the USS Missouri after World War II? You know those pictures? There's a smart answers to stupid questions that Mad Magazine used to publish, and they took
snappy answers to stupid questions.
Yeah. Thank you.
One
Mike,
of my favorites as well.
Right, Mike and I are sharing it right now.
Yep.
Mike knows exactly where I'm going with this.
Yep.
And they have that famous picture of all them there on the deck of the Missouri. And it goes, did we just surrender to the U.S.? It goes, no. The 3 of us have managed to capture by ourselves the entire battleship Missouri. Can you imagine the Ayatollah coming to the White House? And then here's what he'll tweet afterwards. The U.S. president has surrendered to us in Iran. He will put that out. Guaranteed he will. But, yeah, Donald Trump has made it very, very clear. You looking for a ceasefire? You're looking for something else.
He said I was going back home to make a ceasefire. Not a ceasefire. We're long beyond ceasefire. And I said, why do you say that? Why would you say ceasefire? It's a bad term to use. Because a ceasefire means like everything's going swimmingly, we'll take a little time off. It's not. We're not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking for a total, complete victory. Again, you know what the victory is. No nuclear weapon.
Mr. President.
So I thought it was a very badly worded statement by him, and obviously I let him know that.
That is the goal here, no nuclear weapon. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. They have threatened to use it. They have attacked U.S. interests, U.S. bases, U.S. service members for decades now. Jimmy Carter, I bet his one regret in life is not seeing Iran fall, the regime he enabled, the regime he empowered within his lifetime. But that's exactly what's about to happen. So the question is the U.S. going to bomb the Fordo reactor, the Fordo nuclear site? Once again, for those of you that may have missed the discussion about this, the Fordo nuclear site is the nuclear site that Top Gun Maverick is talking about, the impossible to bomb. This is how you get there. It's really tricky to get in there, and Israel might need a U.S. B-2 bomber to drop the bombs on the Fordo facility. So the only question remains whether or not the U.S. is actually going to help out with that. So President Trump got asked about that today.
The destruction or the dismantling of the Fordow nuclear enrichment center, is that a prerequisite for a deal? Is that a red line for you?
No, it's just something that people talk about having. We're the only ones that have the capability to do it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it at all. Yeah, we have the best military equipment in the world. You see that with this fight. We have planes that are undetectable, flying around like, nobody's able to see them stealth. You guys want to be stealthy tonight. You can be stealth, you'll never lose, right? But these are incredible planes and weapons. We have the best weapons in the world, by far. Nobody close. And certain countries take advantage of that. Israel has incredible weaponry. So we'll see what happens. I've been asked about it by everybody, but I haven't made a decision.
Yes, but he's been very, very clear about what he wants out of this.
What's your message to Americans both here and abroad who are not only concerned about the U.S. potentially getting involved in another conflict in the Middle East, but worry about the potential for retaliation here at home?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get involved either, but I've been saying for 20 years, maybe longer, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've been saying it for a long time. And I think they were a few weeks away from having one. And they had to sign a document. I think they wish they signed it now. It was a fair deal. And now it's a harder thing to sign, It's a lot of water over the dam. But, it's I say it very simply. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation. And they'd use it. I believe they'd use it. Others won't use it, but I believe they'd use it. So that's it. It's very simple as far as I'm concerned. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. Now, there's a clip that's gone viral from The Daily Show that, clipped a certain way, looks pretty bad for Israel and the U.S. What is it? It's for the last, since the 1990s, Bibi Netanyahu saying Iran is very close to a nuclear weapon. And a lot of people shared this and says, oh, it's the WMDs in Iraq all over again. No. This is why you shouldn't get your news from The Daily Show. There have been so many efforts by Israel to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. They have kept delaying them and delaying them and delaying them for decades. So, for example, I remember it was back in 2006, 2007, when Israel snuck a computer virus into their nuclear centrifuges that they use at their facilities and made them spin up, and they're very delicate equipment. And when they did that, they spun up and destroyed themselves. They have snuck spies into their nuclear facilities and blown them up before. They have assassinated nuclear scientists before. Anytime Iran gets too close to the bomb, Israel steps in and says, we're going to take care of this because nobody else is going to. And then the world condemns Israel, and then the cycle starts all over again. This time, though, Israel saw an opportunity. Not just was Iran close to the bomb, which they have been many times before, but this time they said, we got Trump in the White House. We got Trump in the White House. We're fighting a 7-front war. We can go do what should have been done a long time ago. In 1980, you may not remember this, the Osirak reactor. Saddam Hussein was building a nuclear reactor to create nuclear weapons. And Israel sent in a squadron of fighter jets to bomb the nuclear reactor. You know what Ronald Reagan said when this happened in 1981? He said, boys will be boys. That was his response to that. This is what Israel does, and they see an opportunity with President Trump. Because Iran is a threat to the entire Western civilization. They're a threat to the entire Middle East. That's why the Abraham Accords worked, because everyone wanted to make a deal with whoever it was that was going to stop Iran. What's happening right now is history. This is history in the making, and I am proud to be on the right side of history. There are too many people who are on the wrong side of history. There's a new poll out right now, which actually says Americans are somewhat divided on bombing Iran. Now, the media has taken this poll and said, well, this shows that there's a fight in MAGA. Republicans and Democrats were surveyed in this poll. And what it shows is over 80% of Republicans support the efforts to bomb Iran. Nobody wants boots on the ground. And by the way, nobody's talking about boots on the ground. I just discussed the police station and why you take out the police station. Because if you take out the police station, then the Iranians can uprise on their own. Somebody sent me an email the other day. They said, Ari, what about arming the Iranian militias? And I go, we did that already. Iran-Contra. Let's not go down that road again. We also armed those insurgency groups against the USSR in Afghanistan. You remember what they ended up being? The Mujahideen? That's right. The Living Daylights with James Bond, where he helps out the Mujahideen and this guy who looks a lot like Osama bin Laden because the Mujahideen became Al-Qaeda, the Taliban. You remember all that? So let's not go down that road again. If the Iranian people want to revolt on their own, let them revolt on their own. Right now, it is about stopping Iran from having a nuclear bomb. And Iran is pretty much defeated in a week. In 1 week. They are almost completely annihilated. Are they still launching stuff at Israel? Yes, they are. In fact, one of the missiles landed very close to the U.S. Embassy. And they have to close the U.S. Embassy for the rest of the week because people are supposed to be staying close to bomb shelters and they need to repair the embassy as well. So for those of you who keep saying, well, they haven't attacked the U.S., they are launching these things specifically at specific areas. They targeted the U.S. Embassy, just their missiles suck, and it landed a few blocks away. Once again, they have targeted the U.S. Iran needs to be defeated. They are a clear and present danger to Western civilization and to freedom. And let's not forget about the 90 million people in Iran who are currently living under a dictatorship. I love this, by the way. Those two idiot journalists who used to work for The Stranger who got fired, who now run the burner account that we were making fun of yesterday, the two that are journalists for Antifa, they're promoting a rally today that says, no war with Iran, no to Zionism, no to capitalism, no to dictatorships. You guys know that Iran is an authoritarian regime, right? Otherwise known as a dictatorship. Ignorance versus willful ignorance. In this case, you might have both. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's up?
I have a story that if it is not true, it should be true.
I like that caveat, Ted. I like that you're honest about that. That's very good. Give it to me.
My seventh grade history teacher back in Ohio told us that at the surrender ceremony on the deck of the USS Missouri, September 18th, 1945, MacArthur gave specific orders that every sailor in the vicinity of the surrender table had to be at least 6 feet 4 inches tall.
Oh, so that way they look taller than the other guys.
Yes, because here comes the Japanese guys, and they're 5 foot.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. Funny. Little subtle racism. But that's still funny, though. I mean, look, if you actually watch the Tommy Lee Jones movie about MacArthur, about General MacArthur and his dealings with the Japanese, that is really well done where they're like, you have to stand before the emperor. He's like, no, I don't. I'm sitting. Yeah, all the stuff we did to make sure that country knew who was in charge. Yeah, really amazing stuff. Ted, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the Seattle Times. Some of the worst reporting I have ever seen just to demonize our local firefighters. We'll tell you what they did when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Willfully ignorant or just ignorant? Here's another example of willfully ignorant. Yesterday, we broke an exclusive story here where there was an investigation done into the vaccine mandates at the city of Seattle for first responders and anybody else who's a city employee. And what we found out in this investigation that was recently disclosed because of the firefighters that are suing the city of Seattle for wrongful termination, there was an interview. And this interview was with one of the firefighters who was having his Loudermill hearing. A Loudermill hearing is when you get to try and keep your job. That's basically the summary of what a Loudermill hearing is. You get to justify what you did, and here's my chance to explain myself, and I want to keep my job. And they said, well, we're denying your religious exemptions. And he said, you're denying my religious accommodations. You're denying your religious accommodations, even though the fire department is making the same accommodations, masks, social distancing, all that kind of stuff for COVID, for the people with medical exemptions and people who are using fake vax cards. Yes, that's what the person said. In response, Seattle Fire Chief Harold Scoggins said, not my problem. So you are willfully ignorant that firefighters that you claim are going to kill everybody because they're unvaccinated are running around with fraudulent vaccine cards, which means they didn't get the jab. But you're firing the religious exemption guys, even though you're giving the exact same accommodations to the medical exemption guys. Just making sure we're all on the same page. That's what my story was about. That's what these documents are about. Which means you wouldn't have known about the fake vaccine cards unless you knew about the religious exemptions. What else did we find out in this report before this story? The report earlier, the investigation earlier, said that the city never planned on giving out religious exemptions, religious accommodations, ever. They were just going through the motions, so that way they wouldn't have First Amendment issues. But we knew that everybody who had a religious accommodation or asked for a religious accommodation, they were the ones getting fired. But the people asking for medical accommodations, they were not. They got to keep their jobs with the same accommodations that the religious exemption people were asking for. We broke this story yesterday. Went pretty crazy on social media once this thing was out there. In fact, we broke it, not yesterday, we broke it Monday night. We broke the story on social media, which is another reason why you should follow me on social media. Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over on Twitter. We broke the story back then. Well, today the Seattle Times decides to cover it. And how does the Seattle Times cover it? Ready? An investigation found that the Seattle Fire Department employees may have taken blank, authentic vaccination cards issued by the CDC from a closed clinic in 2021. First of all, the facts of that are wildly wrong. Was a closed vaccination clinic mentioned? Yes. But you know what else was mentioned in these documents? The fact that these cards were everywhere. Because who are some of the people giving out the vaccines? The firefighters. These cards were everywhere, and this was really, really easy to do. But you guys, I checked this entire article because as soon as it came out, I said, there is no way they mentioned the exemptions, that they were going to deny all religious exemptions. And you don't get to the vaccine card story without explaining where that came from. The Seattle Times, nowhere in this entire article do they mention that the city was planning on denying religious exemptions. By the way, this is a First Amendment lawsuit now. Now, this has federal implications. You guys denied somebody's religious exemptions. Every single Seattle firefighter and first responder who was fired for not getting the jab should now file a federal complaint against Durkin, Scoggins, the city of Seattle. You should bury them with federal complaints right now. That's what every single one of you should be doing. They denied your religious freedom. They denied your religious rights. They planned to do it, and they conspired to keep it secret. This was all part of the plan. You should call them out on this immediately. Immediately. This is something that the Seattle Times decided, oh, we don't want to cover this. No. We're just going to leave that out of the story. Ignorance versus willful ignorance. if the Seattle Times actually had to cover this, then would they actually have to mention the fact that the city did this and that the Seattle Times was helping to push the lie. The Seattle Times was helping to push the lie that, oh, you need to get these things and, they're just going through the motions of the exemptions. No, the Seattle Times helped push all these false COVID narratives the entire time they did. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Corey in Bellevue. Corey, what's up, man?
Ari, you were badly mistaken about what you said about arming the people in Afghanistan against the Soviet Union.
Well, I know James Bond didn't actually do it. That was a joke, man.
Yeah, no. We are the northern people, the Tajiks, the Uzbeks, the Dari, who are related to the Iranians.
Yes.
Down the south where the Pashtun are, those were armed by the Pakistani ISI. And in particular, the Taliban were never involved in the war against the Soviet Union.
A fair point. Fair point. We did help out the Mujahideen, though, didn't we?
We did. And while they weren't necessarily friendly to the United States, they also didn't turn against us.
Wait a second.
We invaded in 2001.
Wait a second. Who'd the Mujahideen become, Corey?
The Mujahideen became the Northern Alliance, and they were the ones fighting against the Taliban. Everything in Afghanistan is mostly tribal. The Pashtun in the south was not something that we were largely involved with. That was the Pakistanis.
Okay.
So
I will yield to my actual ignorance. See, I want to be transparent here. Yeah. I will yield to my actual ignorance on this because you sound like you know a lot better what I'm talking about. But you're killing my narrative that James Bond helped the Taliban, man. Come on, you're killing me here. And Rambo helped the Taliban too. You're really killing my whole ripping these 80s movies, man.
The Taliban were like 5 or 8 years old in the 1980s.
Not the actual they're precursors and all that. But yes, Corey, I hear where you're coming from. I take the correction in stride. Thank you for the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up?
What's up is I'm going to be the lone guy with the manhood and the integrity to defend even getting the COVID vaccine because our public health workers or public health administrators are too wimpy to defend their actions. And I want to start by saying I believe people should have religious exemptions, but when there's a deadly pandemic going on...
Nope, Joe. No. I'm going to stop you right there because that's not factually accurate. Here's what I'm going to correct you on. By the time the mandates were put in place, you can give me that up until the paperwork that came out from all the different health agencies where they said they knew the vaccine did not stop the spread. We have talked about it on the show countless times. I've published all that paperwork on social media. They had that information months before the mandates, and they pushed the mandates anyway. You don't get to say, oh, it's because it's against a pandemic or what. It didn't do anything to stop it. In fact, what they knew at the time was natural immunity, if you had COVID, was better than the vaccine. That's in the paperwork as well.
That's just not.
That is in their paperwork, Joe. That is in all of their paperwork, which we have exposed time and time again, Joe. So if you want to push this stuff, I'm sorry, but you got to push it factually. You just saw me admit I was wrong with Corey. You got to admit you were wrong in this, man, because I'm reading the documents.
Well, I don't know what documents you're reading.
The ones from the Washington Health Department, the ones from the King County Health Department, the one from the Seattle Health Experts, they all have their logos right at the top of the paper. And Inslee had all of these before he imposed his mandate. Durkin had all of these before she imposed her mandate. And you know what? When all of this was decided it wasn't working well, you know who could have hired back all these firefighters and didn't? Bruce Harrell. And then he wouldn't have the staffing problem we have now in the police department. He wouldn't have had the staffing problem we have in the fire department. He could have fixed this day one, and he didn't because he's an empty-suited coward. Appreciate the call, though. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, the Supreme Court wrote one of the most brilliant opinions I have ever read on why specifically trans surgeries on kids should be banned. We'll give you all the details on the brilliance of Judge Coney Barrett and Judge Clarence Thomas when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So the Supreme Court has upheld Tennessee's law that prohibits child sex changes. The ruling was 6-3. Quote, Tennessee's law prohibiting certain medical treatments for transgender minors is not subject to heightened scrutiny under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and satisfies national basis review. Now, let me translate this for all of you who don't speak legalese. I had to speak to a few legal experts this morning to explain all this to me because while I did get an A in the one pre-law class I took in undergrad, I am not a lawyer. Basically, the summary of this case is the plaintiffs were claiming that you have trans kids protected under civil rights laws, equal protection laws, things of that nature. But the defense was saying, yeah, it doesn't really work that way. Now, what's interesting is not the ruling, the majority opinion ruling written by Justice Roberts. What's interesting is the concurrent decision that was written by Judge Clarence Thomas and Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Now, here's what's fascinating about it. This was clearly written by Amy Coney Barrett, and the right has been hating on her for a while now. They've really been trashing her for a while, but this is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So, first they said focus on the legal classification, not the merits of treatment. So, don't make this about the treatment themselves. That's not the court's rule. Question is it equal protection under the law? Barrett emphasized that the core constitutional inquiry is whether Tennessee's bill creates classifications based on a suspect class like sex or transgender status. She underscores that the law targets medical use and age, neither of which trigger heightened scrutiny under equal protection. She also agrees that Tennessee's ban does not single out transgender minors for disparate treatment based on sex. It uniformly prohibits puberty blockers and hormones for any minor when used for gender dysphoria, regardless of assigned sex at birth. She reinforces that courts should not evaluate the wisdom of efficacy of medical or scientific issues, noting that such decisions rightly belong to the legislature and regulatory bodies. A lot of you are sitting there going, wait, Ari, that doesn't make much more sense. That's still legalese. What do we do with this? Translation. States get to decide these things. Take it up with your state legislature. So if Tennessee doesn't want to have sex changes for minors, then Tennessee won't have them. And if Washington does, then Washington will. If you want to make a federal law one way or the other about it, make it in Congress. The other thing that's fascinating about this, Judge Thomas explicitly argues with regards to one of the cases, that Bostock versus Clayton County, which reached sex discrimination under Title VII, should not be extended to the equal protection doctrine. He contends the constitutional text and history are distinct and treating them as the same would upend current precedent. He warned that a ruling equating transgender status with a suspect classification could lead to sweeping disruption in state medical laws. Such a standard could hamper legitimate regulations tied to biological sex, ranging from pregnancy to sex-specific illnesses. Once again, Ari, what are you saying? This is really complicated legalese. Translation. If you can identify however you want, it screws up medical standards, practices, rules, because you could just go from one to the other, one to the other, one to the other, and there's no standards at all anymore, and it's not real. Plus, if you say one day I'm one gender and one day another gender, you're not a protected class because you could just say I'm in any protected class. I identify as black. I identify as Hispanic. I identify as Asian. I identify as a woman. Any of that. From a legal standpoint, this annihilates, absolutely annihilates the entire leftist argument for all of this. And the left going bonkers crazy about it, they know they have a problem here because legally, this is the right decision. I read the dissenting opinion. They don't really have any laws to fall back on. They're just, we don't like this. Bad. Republicans, bad. Conservatives, bad. That's basically what Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor wrote. There's not really a lot of legalese behind it, not well written. This was truly fascinating, and I like it more than the majority opinion written by Roberts. I think this is very well written, and I think it sets a very good standard. Here's the other thing. Democrats are crazy to run on this and crazy to be talking about this. Why? It's an 80-20 issue. They lose on this issue. 80% of Americans do not think we should be doing trans surgeries on minors. You want to do whatever you want when you turn 18? Go ahead and do whatever you want when you turn 18. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Jessica in Everett. Jessica, what's up?
Hey, I was just calling to make a comment about the vaccine mandate with Seattle and the firefighters.
Sure, what's up?
And well, I just it's funny because they seem to really go the extra mile to deny the religious accommodations, but the fact of the matter is, it seems to me most of the accommodations being sought by the firefighters were the very same conditions under which they were working before the vaccine ever came about.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right. Yeah. So let's walk through those for a second just to make this clear to the audience. So basically what happens is you have the pandemic and they say socially distance, wear the masks, do the, bring out the Purell all the time, all that kind of stuff, right? And then they say, once you get the vaccine, those things we were doing beforehand aren't good enough anymore. But then they say, wait, they make it worse. Then they say, okay, well, those things we were doing before don't actually work, but they work for you people with medical exemptions, just not you people with religious exemptions. Right? Am I describing this correctly, Jessica?
You are, except you're leaving out the fact that I don't believe, to my knowledge, that the fire department ever came out and said they had a problem with PPE and using all the equipment and the testing every day. Right. They were lauded as heroes for working under the conditions. The virus was never spread, as far as I'm aware. Yet this was just anathema to them asking for this as an accommodation. So it seems especially punitive. Like it went beyond just fear of the virus transmitting. It almost seems punitive for somebody daring to ask for an accommodation.
Yes.
And hopefully that can be adjudicated.
Yes, as I say, for those firefighters that weren't listening before, and I know a lot of you listen to the show, every single one of you should be filing a federal complaint right now based on this report. Forget the lawsuit you have now. File another one. Big boy court. Let's go to federal court, boys and girls. Let's do this right now.
All right. Thanks. Sorry.
All right, Jessica. Thanks for the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Bennett. Bennett, I know you're going to disagree with me. What do you want to disagree with me about today?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to back up Transit Joe because all your lib listeners ganging up on you today. So there's a couple things about
yeah.
When you're talking about like the two different things you were claiming about the vaccine mandate, one is the claim about how where you said it's not true that the vaccine stops the spread. So here's the clarification on that. Other than some poorly worded statements that came out wrong, informed people are not generally saying that the vaccine 100% stops you from getting COVID.
No. Bennett. I'm going to stop you right there. The president, the governor, the mayor, King County health officials, Washington State health officials, I could play the clips for you again and again and again. We're all saying that. In fact, Jay Inslee called all of us Trump-supporting bioreactor hazards that were brewing the virus, cooking the virus. Now, if you want to say those are badly worded, fine, but that's what they were saying, and that was their excuse for imposing them. That was what they were saying the whole time, which is why we had to do this.
But here's what it means when people say to stop the spread. Here's what herd immunity means. Herd immunity means that the average infected person infects less than one other affected person. Because if the average infected person affects one or more other people, then pretty clearly the sum will grow to infinity and it'll be capped by only the size of your population. But if the average infected person infects half of another person, and then that half average person
right, but hang on, the
person,
vaccine didn't stop the virus. If it did stop the virus, people who got the vaccine wouldn't keep getting the virus again and again and again and again and again. So the herd immunity argument, and here's something else that's in the documents as well, is that we had already reached herd immunity by then because so many people had gotten it, but they would not accept. And here's the biggest thing, Bennett, right? The biggest problem was by then, most people had COVID. And by then, everybody was agreeing on the fact that having the antibodies from getting COVID were better than the vaccine antibodies and that the vaccine should be used for people with pre-existing conditions and people who are at risk. Unfortunately, what they did instead was said herd immunity doesn't count. This was bungled from the top to the bottom.
Well, I think you meant to say natural immunity doesn't count, just to avoid confusing
natural
people.
immunity. You're right. Sorry, but yes.
If you go to the Washington State Department of Health now, you can Google it. Washington State Department of Health.
Have they updated it from the documents we had before? Have they now changed it from before? Because we know we caught them revising these things multiple times. Now science changes and science gets updated, but they weren't following the science during any of this. In fact, we've got the orders going back to when Jay Inslee was putting all the people in the nursing homes and killed a bunch of people. Do appreciate the discussion, Bennett. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. When we come back, creepy Chris Rakedahl is saying some really interesting things about boys competing in girls' sports in a recent interview with Fox 13. We'll have that insane audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So, creepy Chris Rakedall did a sit-down with Fox 13 about his policies and lawsuits against Trump, et cetera, Trump administration investigating Washington, and he gave the same answers he always gave. But for some reason, they sounded way worse than usual. So, of course, one of the hot-button issues that Hannah Kim was asking him about was boys competing in girls' sports. Listen to the answer on the question.
Okay, so the issue of transgender athletes in female sports, I wanted to ask you about that because this is something that's on President Trump's, agenda. And right now, you have been very clear about this issue. You've been very clear, and you say you believe that transgender athletes should be able to play in female sports. Now, that does defy Trump's order on this. And many people in Washington will agree with you. They say you should protect transgender athletes in these sports games. However, there are families who disagree with you on this. And some of those families with, young female athletes would say that this is an equity issue, that it's not in the same playing field. So what is your response to those families?
Well, first and foremost, my job is to follow the law. So regardless of what I personally feel, which is an inclusive perspective, we should all follow the law. The federal laws allow us to build a state law on top of it. In other words, Title IX of the federal law said, hey, we need equal access to females. This was created decades ago. But then it said, states, you get to build some civil rights above that. And states like ours in California, Massachusetts, states all across the country said, when it comes to gender, it's about identity, not necessarily sex at birth.
Whoa. Can somebody explain? I know I'm not a biologist. I will admit, I failed most of my biology classes. I'm not good at science, but I know the difference between a guy and a girl. So gender versus sex, you're talking about made-up nonsense. There's boys, there's girls. My daughter came into the room while I was ripping this video earlier today, and she goes, there's boys and there's girls. Yes, sweetie, exactly right. So because I identify, I get to compete in that sport? Yeah, what the hell is he talking about? Oh, by the way, there's a lot more to this interview, so I'll tell you what. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little break because we're getting close to the top of the hour. We're going to come back. We're going to do our Take the Trip or Keep the Cash contest, and then we're going to play some more gold from this Chris Rakedall interview, where when faced with how badly kids are doing in public school system, he says, no, they're not. Wait, yes, they are. No, they're not. Yes, they are. But it's the Republicans' fault. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, funding is cut to help drug-addicted babies because Bob Ferguson vetoed it. But before we get to any of that, you work hard, you need a getaway, possibly some financial relief. We've got you with KVI's Take the Trip or Keep the Cash, my friends.
The golden age of America begins right now.
Woo! Woohoo! So, this week, you can get away to Venice, Italy with gondola rides, candlelit pasta, and Prosecco beneath the Venetian skies, or have a chance at $3,000 in cash. Now, here's what you have to do in order to win. You are going to text the keyword and only the keyword. See, yesterday I gave people compliments on how well they were doing, and it's like they reverted. I told you I gave you a compliment, guys, so now we got to go back to explaining the rules again. Text only the word I give you. No other words, only once. Not your name, not your phone number, not your address, not how beautiful I am. You can do that later in the show. You could say, Ari, you are the most good-looking radio host we have ever seen. No, you don't need to lose any weight, and your hair that's receding looks fantastic. You can do that later. But for right now, all you have to do is do just the word and just one time. You text the word sun. That's S-U-N. As in, the sun is shining outside my studio window today. Text the word sun to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We'll get you in the daily drawing to get a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. And you can win a trip or keep the cash with KVI. You have until 5 p.m. to enter. Your next chance at winning comes tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil and Zach. Don't forget to check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and more. Exactly. Might as well be walking on the sun. So text the keyword sun to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Do not call us either. Just text the word in. 206-421-5757. Now, because I promised in the last segment, my friends, creepy Chris Rakedahl. Yes, he's definitely in the fire, so I guess he's walking on the sun, too, for his dumb comments. Let's go back. Thank you. So, Chris Rakedahl, very toasty. Chris Rakedahl had this sit-down interview with Fox 13. Let's go back, in case some people missed the last segment, to his first comment. Hannah Kim is asking him about boys and girls sports. Here was his defense.
Okay, so the issue of transgender athletes in female sports, I wanted to ask you about that because this is something that's on President Trump's, agenda. And right now you have been very clear about this issue. You've been very clear and you say you believe that transgender athletes should be able to play in female sports. Now, that does defy Trump's order on this. And many people in Washington will agree with you. They say you should protect transgender athletes in these sports games. However, there are families who disagree with you on this. And some of those families with, young female athletes would say that this is an equity issue, that it's not in the same playing field. So what is your response to those families?
Well, first and foremost, my job is to follow the law. So regardless of what I personally feel, which is an inclusive perspective, we should all follow the law. The federal laws allow us to build a state law on top of it. In other words...
Hang on a second. Before that. So follow the law which you created with your inclusive personality to allow boys to compete in girls' sports. That's what he's saying. He's admitting it right there.
Title IX of the federal law said, hey, we need equal access to females. This was created decades ago. But then it said, states, you get to build some civil rights above that. And states like ours in California, Massachusetts, states all across the country said, when it comes to gender, it's about identity, not necessarily sex at birth.
So it's how you identify. Mike, I've been doing this all wrong. I'm a dolphin. I want my habitat protected. I don't want to pay taxes on it because I'm a dolphin. I shouldn't be subjected to those rules. I want it protected as a natural habitat for Hoffman dolphins. And that way the government can't come after me at all. It's my area. I can do what I want with it because I'm a dolphin. Right? That's how I identify. Chris Rakedahl just said it. So I identify that way. Do you realize how stupid that is? Oh, wait. His dumb didn't stop there.
So I always try to put this in perspective for people. There's 5 to 10 athletes out of 1 million students in our state, right, who are participating as transgender athletes. Maybe they were born intersex, maybe they went through transition. So our message is we can do this. We've been doing this for 20 years without controversy until Donald Trump, where we accommodate the individual as best we can.
Hang on. This problem didn't start with Donald Trump. You've been having this problem for years. People have been calling it out for years. And if there's truly only 5 people with this issue, why are you redoing every sport to accommodate the 5 people as opposed to finding accommodations for the 5 people? So, for example, oh, well, you're not good at sports, dude. Let's put you with the girls. Maybe instead you should say, we got better practices for you. Or, you know what, one day we all find out we're not going to be professional baseball players. Most of us find that out. And you know what? Maybe I should identify as a preschooler so I can play t-ball. Maybe that's what we should do here. Oh, he wasn't done yet.
When you say intersex, what do you mean by that?
They are not born with biological male or female private parts. That is a small fraction of the U.S. population, but it's a very real biological thing. So when people run around and say, you're either a boy or a girl, there's actually a fraction of our population that isn't born one way or the other. And so we need to accommodate. That's just one category of transgender, of course, but I'm always trying to help people understand that nothing is black and white. It's always a little more complicated.
And he has given this excuse before, and it still doesn't hold water. The ones who are competing, who are beating the girls, are not people who were born with some biological thing or something else. They are boys who have chosen to be girls. Veronica Garcia, whatever his name actually is, isn't one of these individuals. Instead, it is a person who identifies as a girl so that they can win because they will not be competitive at the boys' level. I don't think anybody wants to discriminate against people who may be born one way or born the other way or some malformity or something like that. Of course not. But here what you're saying is, well, we feel bad this boy can't compete at his level, so we're going to let him beat up on the girls for a little bit. That's what he's going to do. Now, by the way, this wasn't the end of creepy Chris Rakedahl stuff. This is my favorite part of the interview. This is it. So Hannah Kim always does a good job for Fox 13. Hannah Kim calls out Chris Rakedahl for the fact that the scores are terrible. 2/3 of kids in our state are below grade level, 2/3 of the kids. And what do you say to that? Chris Rakedahl is going to blame the Washington Policy Center. That's my favorite part. He's going to blame a think tank and then admit that, yeah, the numbers are right after denying and saying, no, the numbers are not correct. Listen to him dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Right. I just want to talk about some scores now. In the last legislative session, we know that they gave the state more than $1 billion in additional funding. And we also know that per student, spending has gone up over the years, although not as much as you would like. I know you've talked about that before. But I do want to bring up this stat here. So this is according to the Washington Policy Center. Back in 2012, we had about $13,000 spent per student. By 2024, that number around 19,000. And over that same time, we've seen a dip in academic scores. And that's according to your website there at OSPI. About 60% not on track for college level learning in math and 50% when it comes to English. So what should districts be doing maybe differently that they haven't tried before? What is your guidance on this to turn things around?
Well, our districts work really hard, and actually they're doing a great job. And so when we say not college university ready, that means that 3/4 of our kids are absolutely on grade band. So we've got to do some work with that other 25% for sure. And we have less money today adjusted for inflation per kid than we did 6 years ago. So
Stop. None of what he just said is accurate. Now he's flat out lying. Let's do that. No, we don't have less money as adjusted for inflation. If you want to go down that road, who caused the inflation? Oh, right. You guys on your side of the aisle. Second of all, saying, oh, they're not college ready yet. That's not the stat. The stat is they are not at grade level. I don't expect the 8th grader to be ready for college yet. It's that they're not at grade level. Please continue.
So the battle of the stats kind of goes on, but what I would say to everybody is there's a reason we're such a successful economy. It's public ed. 90% of kids go to public ed. We've got these great programs that now allow them to go lots of directions, universities, college, military, technical. So we've got really great educators, great school districts, and there's always work to do, especially when there's more poverty than we've ever had and more mental health than we've ever had.
Wait. No, there's not more poverty than we've ever had. That is completely inaccurate. And the mental health issues, do you think maybe your DEI insanity of telling kids that they're in the wrong body and all that may be causing mental health issues? Just a thought. Just throwing it out there. Yeah, just throwing it out.
Health needs. So it's a constant battle, but the Policy Center is a very partisan ideological group. So they have one perspective, and then there's national data that suggests very few states are statistically outperforming Washington.
Sure. Hang on. You're blaming the Washington Policy Center? Our friend Todd Myers, Vice President of Research over at the Washington Policy Center, saw that I posted this video, and he wrote the following. How dare we use his own data? According to the Washington State Office of Financial Management, inflation-adjusted per-student state spending increased 12% over the past 5 years. He says spending went down. That is just a lie. Their entire report is based on his data. Also, he just lied again. What is he saying? Oh, well, nationally, we're not so bad. Nationally, everybody's bad. If you want to say you're in the middle of the pack, when the majority of state public schools that are funded across the country are below grade level, you're right, you're not so bad. But that means you're all failing. It's a difference between an F and an F plus at that point. So you're all failing. You're just in the middle of the pack of the failures. That's still not a good place to be. Oh, he wasn't done yet.
I mean, that is partisan for sure, but those numbers are accurate, though, right?
Well, no, because they say those kids aren't on grade band. And the real fact is what percentage of kids are at grade level, which is about 3/4, and then how...
That is not true. That is a bold-faced lie, and it ain't the Washington Policy Center telling us that. It's your numbers. In addition to that, the National Report Card told us the same thing because they get those numbers from you guys. 2/3 of the kids in Washington State are not at grade level. Please continue.
How many are ready to go to a university without needing remediation in math or writing by the time they are 15 or 16 years old? And we get to almost 50% of those kids. So as a relative performer in the country, we do awfully well, but there's always work to be done.
Whoa. You get to almost 50% of the kids are college ready by the time they're 15, 16 years old. First of all, college ready, 17, 18 years old. But 15, 16 years old, almost 50%? So when you say it's 33%, is that almost 50%? Because then you're admitting all the other statistics were accurate. And you're admitting that you're a liar, which is what Chris Rakedal is. A gigantic liar. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Beth in Seattle. Beth, happy birthday to you. Look at the present the Supreme Court gave you today.
It's not my birthday today, but I will take it. It's a wonderful day.
Excellent. What's going on?
Of course, we have creepy Chris Rakedal, who doesn't know his biology but makes rules and forces every district to follow it anyway.
Yes.
He's talking about intersex kids, and it's a very rare condition. It's disorders of sexual development, just like, there's kids that are born and their eyes don't work or they're missing an arm. That happens. But it doesn't mean that they're not a boy or girl. They're just a boy or girl that has some disorders, and we should treat them compassionately as a boy or a girl.
Exactly.
And that is not the issue in our sport, and he should know that, but he pretends he doesn't.
Well, actually, I'm a little disappointed in Hannah Kim for not saying that, like Veronica Garcia, that's the one that comes to mind offhand. Didn't say, I have a deformity or something that needs to be dealt with. Instead, said, it's a boy. I transitioned to being a girl. The basketball player, same thing. I believe they went on Brandy's show and said, no, this is why I did it. This is who I am. Had a very nice conversation with Brandy. Didn't say it's because of a deformity or anything like that, or because something they were born with. Nobody's saying that's who's beating these girls. And I think everybody would say, of course you should find a way for these kids to play sports. But Chris Rakedal is trying to make that the catch-all, because otherwise you're just saying, yeah, boys can beat up girls or boys can beat girls at whatever sport it is.
Exactly. And he doesn't care about girls' rights. He doesn't care about protecting girls, and none of the Democrats in the Washington State Legislature or the governor do either.
In fact, you know how we can prove this?
Males in the women's prison.
Right. He doesn't care about the women in the prisons or anything like that who are being abused by the male inmates that are moving in there because they have life sentences and they want to be with a woman. But here's something else. Didn't he fire an employee after she voted to keep boys out of girls' sports in her elected school board position? Just making sure. I mean, like, if he really cared about women in business and women in jobs, he wouldn't have fired that lady, right?
Exactly. And he threatened any of the districts that try to protect girls in their sports and in their spaces.
Yeah.
He's threatened them with loss of state funding. So he's the dictator here in Washington, and so is Governor Ferguson, who stands behind him.
No, don't even get me started on that guy. Beth, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Warren in Stanwood. Warren, what's going on?
Well, just Ragdoll is one of those people who was born without a brain.
Yes, I would call that a deformity, right?
But my real question is, those of us who work in the private sector, like for Puget Sound Energy, that required their employees to get a vaccine, can some of this information that has come to light maybe be used by them to maybe go after PSC for mandating something that didn't work and they knew it?
Sort of. Let me tell you what could possibly help you, okay? You have to find out if Puget Sound Energy was using the state guidelines, the federal guidelines, which guidelines they were using. These documents only reveal what was going on in the city of Seattle for city employees. Now, the previous health documents I discussed where they knew the vaccine wasn't effective, those are readily available, and those might be able to help, but you need to find out if Puget Sound Energy or these other companies, what information they were using. And it's a lot harder to go after a private company that can make all kinds of requirements for their employees versus a public company that's a little bit more restricted. It will be a tougher, more uphill battle.
Yeah, well, I wasn't one who had to take it, but it kind of insults my intelligence as to making these people that take these vaccines that were unproven.
Yeah. And the thing was that at the time, you know how they could have done this? They could have just said, if you want to take it, it's available. Anybody can have it. Here's how you can get it. But we want to give it to the people with pre-existing conditions and people who are at risk first. The rest of you, especially if you've had it. By the way, that was the easiest thing to do. Go for a test. Check your antibody level if you already had it and say, you know what, you're good for 90 days. You're good for 180 days. Whatever the case may be, that would have erased this whole problem. But that's not what they did. Warren, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Larry in Magnolia says, Ari, stand by and watch out. When someone identifies as a tortoise, the state creates a sport for them. Taxpayers then pay for the quarter mile, and we lose our shirts. Oh, that's very, very good. I like that one. This one here from Bob in Portland. If our economy is so great, then why do we have to have more poverty, Chris? That's a good one, too. This one from Pat. Hey, Dolphin Ari, I identify as a hawk. However, jumping out of a tree, the science of aerodynamics and bone damage prove me wrong. Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. Oh, you guys are funny today. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, why are women buying more guns in Washington State? And watching the Seattle Times try to figure out why is very entertaining. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 4:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the Bremerton Air Show. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Also, don't forget, you have until 5 o'clock to enter the word we gave you at 4 o'clock for our Take the Trip or Keep the Cash giveaway. No, I will not give you that word again. That's why you should always be listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. So, I saw this little fun study. This article from the Seattle Times. The Seattle Times is freaking out. Why? Because women are going to the gun range more often and women are buying more guns. Gee, why do you think that is here in Western Washington? Do you think because the crime stats are off the charts? Wait. Bruce Harrell says crime's going down, right? It's not like there's random shootings and random murders and people stealing whatever there is in front of them. Oh, and top that all off, Antifa. Yeah, you know, them taking over intersections when you're just out for a night and Saturday night in downtown Seattle. You're driving around. Maybe you want to go to the Cheesecake Factory. Oh, wait, that's not there anymore. Oh, maybe you want to go to the night. Oh, you can't go to the Nikes. Nope, that's not there anymore either. Maybe you want to go to Starbucks. No, wait, the ones at Pike Place Market closed. Can't go to those. Okay. I want to go to the PC's. Nope, can't go there. Oh, well, I don't know what you'd be doing in downtown Seattle, but let's just say, for sake of argument, you're in downtown Seattle on a Saturday night, and then you get attacked by some Antifa lunatic. Some woman had to abandon her car on Saturday night. Gee, why do you think more women are getting guns? That's a real head scratcher there. I think Seattle Times is torn in this article. By the way, this article is one of the longest articles I've ever seen because they're trying to come up with, wait, are we doing classes? Are we not? Are we trying to justify the stuff they passed? Wait, is this for safety? Is it not for safety? I've never seen a more confusing article from the Seattle Times. They really just don't know what to do with themselves over this one. It's really funny because it goes against their entire narrative. Wait, you mean people buy guns to protect themselves? Yes. Now, Whitney Cummings, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She's a comedian, and she was on Bill Maher's show the other day. Here's what she had to say about getting guns.
It's been fascinating because I've been on this sort of journey through motherhood where, you know, I've always been a very liberal person, maybe even a libtard. But once you have a kid, you start, like, having thoughts that have been characterized as conservative. Yes. As soon as I had a kid, I was like, I need a gun now. Not for myself, because I've got coyotes in my yard. Right. I've got coyotes everywhere. And before I had a kid, I was like, they coexist with us. Coyotes were here first. Like, I'm in the coyotes' home. Now I'm like, let's make hats out of them. Let's make hats. Let's make coyote boots, coyote earrings out of their eyeballs. Like, it's just...
That's what happens when you become a mom. That's what happens when you become a dad. You will do anything to protect your kids. Anything. So unfortunately, when kids can't protect themselves from their parents sometimes, the state has to get involved. But unfortunately here, Washington State has passed all these laws to make sure that these kids stay in bad environments and that they can have access to fentanyl and die from fentanyl overdoses, which we've been seeing happen time and time again. Now there's an even more tragic story. I'm going to read to you from Como News. And then I'm going to tell you what Como News and every single media outlet in town left out of their story. So, a longtime resource to help drug-exposed newborns said it was blindsided by Washington State and was told it had to shut down at the end of the month. The founder of the Pediatric Interim Care Center in Kent told Como News the hospital-grade facility is the victim of state budget cuts. Those cuts, according to executive director and founder Barbara Drennan, abruptly led to the end of its contract with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. Drennan said over the years, the state legislature has funded nearly half their annual budget, but this year's appropriation went from north of $700,000 to $100,000 annually for the next 2 years. She said lawmakers understood the value of the PICC and voted to keep them funded. She and board president Eric Drever said they understood the initial cuts and the difficulty in balancing the state budget, but were stunned when at the last minute the funding was slashed completely. They said it fell victim to the governor's partial veto power on the budget, striking down provisions, including funding for the PICC. Sorry, quick correction here. Como News is the only outlet that kept that line in. I apologize, Como News. Sorry. Didn't mean to do that one there. You're the only ones who kept that line in. So do you remember when Bob Ferguson passed the largest tax increase in state history? And we said, dude, there were so many cuts you could have made. You even suggested $4 billion worth of cuts, and instead you hit us with $9 billion in new taxes. Do you remember all this? Do you remember all this insanity? But at the time, he says, don't worry, I cut $25 million. So out of a $78 billion budget, you cut $25 million? That's it? And one of the things you cut was treatment for children who were born addicted to drugs because their parent did drugs while they were pregnant with them? Wow, Bob Ferguson. Really? I thought you couldn't suck anymore. But now we found this one out. Travis Couture, representative from down in Washington from the 34th District, says, this absolutely makes my guts turn. Republicans had to fight tooth and nail just to get these table scraps to help drug-addicted babies. Then Bob Ferguson vetoed it. Outrageous. This is 100% on Bob Ferguson. So the next time he says, I'm looking out for the children, I'm looking out for the kids, he is completely full of it. He's the one who vetoed the funding for this. And also, let's not forget that Democrats in the state are the ones who passed the Keeping Families Together Act. What's the Keeping Families Together Act? That's the one where if a kid's parents are addicted to drugs, the CPS doesn't get to pull them out of the house. You have to keep them together. And we've had how many infants die from this because of this stupid law? I've lost track, and I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to admit that I've lost track of how many kids died from this because, unfortunately, there's too many. Next time any Democrat in the state says they're looking out for the kids, ask them why they still support this. Ask them why they won't repeal this. And ask them why they supported a budget. In fact, you know what? Some Republicans voted for this stupid nonsense. Remember, they voted for the transportation budget or whatever it was. Ask them also why they supported this stupidity. They cut funding for drug-addicted babies because their mothers did drugs with them while they were pregnant, and this could have saved their lives. And now the funding isn't there anymore, thanks to Bob Ferguson and the Democrats. Absolutely insane.
I just want to know if they support the kids. How come they don't support the kids?
Great line, Mike. Sounds like an episode title for one of our next shows. If they support the kids, why don't they support the kids? Great question, Mike. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, why should any of us care about the Karen Reed verdict? I'm actually kind of curious because I haven't followed the case this closely until today. We'll give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just for those of you who are watching us on the live stream, something's up with my camera today. Don't worry, we'll have it fixed for tomorrow. But the audio is working fine. You can hear it just like everybody does on the radio, on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Brian in Kent. Brian, what's going on?
Hey, Ari, thanks for taking my call. Listen to your show every single day that I can. And I was a firefighter for the city of Kent for 32 years, now retired. I responded to that PIC clinic in Kent. I cannot tell you how many times for babies that might be in status seizures. And we had to, start IVs to just stabilize them medically. And I'm so angry to find out about this budget cut that takes this away from the community for these babies that are just racked with just agony and pain going through withdrawals. And 90% of the people there are volunteers, mothers, grandmothers who sit up through the night comforting these infants. I'm so angry. I don't know what to say.
Well, I'll tell you what, Brian, there may be something you can do instead of say. I'm going to give you an idea, and I was just thinking it while you're telling me this heartbreaking news, because I don't think I knew all the details about this clinic. I assume clinic, I think doctors. I didn't realize that's what kind of clinic it was. So thank you for clarifying that. There's something you can do. You can actually get all the firefighters together to do testimonies, short video testimonies, and we can clip them. We'll share them on social media on my platform, whatever the case may be. I'll help you guys. But what you should do is you should say, restore the funding. And you guys should keep it apolitical. Let people like me spin that. You guys keep it apolitical. You go, I can't believe you cut the funding for this. This is what they do. You say what you just said to me. It doesn't have to be Democrat, Republican, Bob Ferguson, not that. You say you need to restore the funding, and here's why. I'm sure you still have friends with the fire department, a whole bunch of the medics, I'm sure the police officers. You guys put together 30-second to 90-second videos for social media. And then we put them out there. We make some TV commercials perhaps, but that will resonate because how many people, you just gave me information I didn't know. How many people out there don't know any of this is happening?
And that clinic started in a vacant house. And then through donations through the community, they built a beautiful clinic that is, it's more like a home. And, just going there at 3 o'clock in the morning for some baby in status seizures and trying to comfort them and seeing these, your mother, your grandmother sitting there taking care of these babies, rocking them through the night.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Brian, I'm going to give you my email address, ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. If the guys from the fire department, if the guys from the fire department, the medics want to do anything about this, I'm happy to help. I can't spearhead it, but I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help make this happen because this is a very, very important cause and it should be called out. And I think one of the reasons it's not being addressed and one of the reasons this thing was cut is because it actually showcases failure of government. They say they've got this drug issue under control. Oh, overdoses are going down. Oh, we don't need to repeal the Keep Families Together Act. It's all getting better. This thing is a reminder of their failures of not dealing with the drug epidemic. So unfortunately, I think it's been caught in the crosshairs of politics, but I think you guys with an apolitical message can bring it back.
I will mobilize the troops.
All right,
get
Brian.
this done.
You got my email.
Right.
If I can help in any way, you guys reach out. Okay?
Thank you for your work, Ari.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
All right.
Appreciate you.
You bet.
Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from John in Bremerton. John, what's going on?
Ari, dear man, a dear voice. I'm curious if the Times, the city, the county, or the state had conversations about supporting the vaccine mandates, because I think there's a case if there is as evidence of that would be collusion.
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe we should start filing public disclosure requests for emails they sent to the Seattle Times. And rather than say any email you sent to the Seattle Times, I don't want all their requests for comment. I'd be looking for reporters' individual names that they did with the Seattle Times with the health stuff. I have to go back and do some research into who was writing this garbage for them and who was pushing their narrative, because now I'm super curious. And you know what, John? That's not a bad idea. Somebody's reputation here is on the line, which is why they didn't give the whole story. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being a part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I haven't been following the Karen Reed trial so much. I had a lot of reading to do last night and today to get caught up on this. But basically, it was summed up to me as follows. A blue-collar white woman trapped in a toxic relationship with a drunken Massachusetts cop who's cheating on her, and all his friends treat her like garbage, but she keeps showing up because she doesn't know how to leave. Then one night, he gets into a drunken brawl, smacks his head on the driveway, and his friends pretend she hit him with her car. Forensics prove her innocent. Very small town Massachusetts. There's literally a TV show that came out last year, which I can't say the title of on air, but it talks about this entire dynamic. Did that about sum up this case? Yeah, it does. I don't know why it has the national fascination. I really don't. According to Fox News, Reed found John O'Keefe around 6 a.m. lying in the snow and unresponsive. She was with two other women, Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts, both of whom testified against her during the trial. By the way, they were all drunk. You shouldn't be listening to any of these fools. They were all at a drunken party together. She wasn't sure she hit him because, one, she didn't, but two, she didn't remember because she was so drunk. They said Reed called them in a panic that morning, said she couldn't find O'Keefe. McCabe testified that morning in question. Reed repeated 3 times, "I hit him." Paramedic Timothy Nuttall, the first witness to take the stand in the trial, said he overheard Reed saying the same thing 3 times again. But the defense argued that a collision never happened. The couple and other friends and acquaintances, including McCabe, had been out drinking in downtown Canton before they were invited to an after-party at the home of Brian Albert, who testified in the first trial but not the second. All right, so she's dumb for driving home drunk, that's for sure. She's dumb for getting blackout drunk, that's for sure. But she didn't actually kill anybody. O'Keefe was found on Albert's lawn hours later. Witnesses said they saw Reed's car outside, but neither she nor O'Keefe went into the gathering. She did not testify in her own defense, but she told reporters outside the court that she saw O'Keefe go inside before she drove away. Throughout the trial, Brennan played clips of Reed's televised interviews, giving jurors a chance to hear not only her version of events, but other commentary she gave to journalists, including how she was spiking her own drinks at the bar before O'Keefe's death and an encounter with O'Keefe's mother afterwards. Prosecutors alleged that Reed hit O'Keefe and drove to his house without him. Reed's defense had argued she never hit him, blaming his injuries on a dog attack and an altercation with other men after the party. So basically what it sounds like happened here, he either got attacked by a dog, was drunk, fell down, and hit his head, or he got into a fight with the other guys, was drunk, fell down, hit his head, or got hit down, hit his head, and died. And everybody at the party said, hey, she's really drunk. She's really wasted. Let's pin it on her. At least that's what it sounds like to me. Something tells me this is going to be a Lifetime original movie before the end of the week, right? If it's not already in pre-production, a Hallmark movie, one of these kind of things, or they're going to dramatize it and get a Ben Affleck to star in it, like a Gone Girl kind of thing. Just wait. Just wait. Her book, I'm sure, will be coming out shortly. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, one of those giant mobile billboards talking about anti-Semitism at University of Washington showed up to graduation, but did the Hamasniks show up as well? What happened when that billboard pulled into the parking lot? We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I got to say, my friends, I was kind of shocked that the University of Washington graduation allegedly went off without a hitch, because I know last year the Seattle Times front page of the Seattle Times, look at the graduation, and it's people wearing keffiyehs and people waving Palestinian flags. And there was that incident at the law school graduation where somebody walked on stage with a banner promoting terrorism. But the big graduation, we didn't see much going on. In fact, the only thing I saw was our friend Adam Gillette from Accuracy in Media had one of his giant billboards outside calling them out for all their anti-Semitism. But he joins us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line to tell us what we may have missed. Adam, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Such a pleasure, buddy. So what was at the UW graduation this year? Because it looked like they did a really good job cropping pictures, not posting pictures that had any of that stuff in it. Do you think they've learned their lesson, or was that just cutting around the edges so nobody would see what was happening?
No, I'll tell you, I attend a lot of commencements. We go to Harvard, we go to Columbia. Tame. The only real troublemakers were us with our mobile billboard, of course, featuring the students from one of America's most anti-Semitic universities who had been arrested recently when they took over the engineering building and did $1 million of damage.
Right. So you have those students, you have some of their alumni who are part of that whole thing. We know charges are coming. And actually, from what I hear from the prosecutor's office, they're going back and forth on making sure the paperwork's all in the correct order so that they can charge these guys. But do you think the university's learned its lesson, or do you think they're just afraid of the Trump administration, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a little from column A, a little from column B. But what's really clear is that the statement put out by the university after the violence was strong, but Columbia puts out strong statements. The worst that their statements ever do is give somebody a paper cut. But it does seem as if the University of Washington might have learned their lesson. Or perhaps they realized that it's not nice and it's not a popular idea to take a building that was largely paid for by Boeing, allow $1 million of damage to be done to it, and to never, ever do anything about the perpetrators. Because who would ever again contribute money philanthropically to a university when these students will literally then destroy it if the university doesn't hold them accountable? So, as you know, we set up the action alert, uwhatesjews.com, where you could send a message not only to the trustees, but also to local law enforcement, letting them know that these radicals should absolutely be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, and that the university should not tolerate any of this violence.
Okay, so we hope that's the direction UW's going in. I'm pretty skeptical, but losing federal funding could be a huge, huge incentive not to screw up anymore. What are you seeing nationally? Is this the way places are going, with the exception of Harvard, which says, yes, we hate the Jews, and we're going to keep hating the Jews, and we're going to hate them Jews all day long. Take away as much funding as you want.
You're seeing pretty much every university doing their best to pretend that they're resolving things, even though many times they aren't. Of course, Columbia University cut a deal with the Trump administration where they said no more violent anti-Semitism, no more masking. And then literally the next day, their interim president, now former president, was caught on a cam and a mic saying, yeah, we're not actually going to do the thing that we said about the masking. So they're realizing that it's not going to be that easy for them to say one thing and do another, which is, I think, the motto at Columbia and many of these other universities. So some of them are cleaning things up a little bit, but then of course you've got universities like Harvard where they're doubling down and saying, no. We're for anti-Semitic violence to its core. We're not changing anything.
We're talking with Adam Gillette, who's the president with Accuracy and in Media. And when you go out to these college campuses, I know, look, when you came here, you went to a public school and you got threatened by Antifa. What's the reaction like these days? Are people still getting in your face about it? Are people thankful you're there? What's the reaction you're getting on these campuses when you show up?
It varies wildly, of course, based on the campus. At Columbia, they learned that their violence against us isn't going to make us go away, so they gave up. It took a year of getting death threats and swattings and having them confront me, but they eventually learned the lesson that threatening people is not necessarily going to get you what you want, so they stopped. I don't get death threats from those idiots anymore. Now, it is different, of course, at other universities. It's different at Harvard. It's different at UW. We also went on Friday to a hospital in Oakland, California, where they actually have in residency one of Columbia's university's leading violent anti-Semites. Those people got out and got aggressive with us. Some union thug led a band of about 35 protesters who wanted to assault us, one of whom kept trying to spit on us, which I think is against medical protocol. Others came out from the hospital with crutches and with bed sheets to try to obscure our billboard, which is great because it cost far more people to pay attention to it than otherwise would have. So those people were wacky and radical because they're not used to being held accountable there. But by and large, these people are beginning to learn the lesson that we've been teaching them.
This reminds me of every time they talk about the seniors marching on Washington over Social Security. I go, what, the people in walkers are going to come after you? But here it sounds like that's literally what was happening.
That's exactly right. And all I could think of, imagine you're a philanthropic donor to this hospital and you look and see what's happening to the supplies they paid for. Well, they're being used to help defend an anti-Semite. They're not being used to help somebody who can't walk on their, get a crutch or, doesn't have clean bed sheets. People wonder why the cost of healthcare is so expensive in America. It's because for some hospitals, I guess they're activist organizations, not medical institutions.
No, Adam, I think for the first time ever, you're wrong. I think they're trying to emulate Hezbollah because all their members are wrapped up in hospital appendages now because of what happened to them during Operation Grim Beeper. Adam Gillette from Accuracy in Media. Great job as always, buddy. Great job holding everybody accountable, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour, free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including tickets to the Bremerton Air Show and a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card. But before we get to any of that, a lot of polling's going on right now about the war with Israel and Iran. Should the U.S. get involved? Should the U.S. not get involved? How involved do you want the U.S.? So these same questions I'm going to put to you out there in the audience. Should the U.S. get involved? Should the U.S. not get involved? If you want the U.S. involved, to what level? Does that mean just the bombing? Do you want boots on the ground? Do you want Israel doing boots on the ground? Do you want regime change? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Some of this polling has already been done. It's fascinating to me how different media outlets cover it. Here's what CNN had to say.
And overall, I feel like there's more support for Donald Trump's positions than is comically acknowledged. Oppose Iran getting a nuclear weapon. I mean, look at this. 79% of adults agree on that. They agree with Donald Trump. Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. 83% of Republicans, 79% of independents, 79% of Democrats. When you get 79% of Democrats and 83% of Republicans agreeing on anything, you know that that position is the very clear majority in this country. And so the American public is with Donald Trump. They definitely oppose Iran getting nuclear weapons.
So this is a nuance here, but, Trump and Netanyahu both arguing that Iran is close to being capable of making a nuclear weapon. If that is the case, what is the feeling of Americans as to whether the United States should get involved in this conflict?
Right. If you buy Donald Trump's theory of the case, and I think that's important to note, this is polling from April. If Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon, look at this. Overall, you get the slight plurality. I mean, it's within the margin of error, but the slight plurality of Americans actually favor U.S. airstrikes compared to 47% opposing it. Now, here's the other nugget I'll note, right? There's been a lot of talk online and on social media and in podcasts of a divide within the Republican ranks. But here, on this question, if Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon, look at that. 69% of Republicans, the clear vast majority of Republicans, favor U.S. airstrikes on Iran, on their nuclear facilities. But there is this substantial minority, 27%, who oppose such an idea. So it's not surprising you're hearing those other voices besides Donald Trump out there. There are plenty of them in the Republican ranks who oppose the U.S. striking Iran if they're trying to make a nuclear weapon. But the clear majority of Republicans are with Donald Trump if, in fact, Iran is trying to make nuclear weapons. They do, in fact, potentially favor U.S. airstrikes.
So this is what we were hearing all week long. MAGA's splintered. MAGA's divided. No, it's not. It's not. In fact, it seems the majority of the country is supporting Donald Trump if he was going to go in there with some B-2 bombers and bomb Fordo, which is the last remaining real nuclear facility that the Iranians have. I want to know what you think. Do you support going in with the bombers or not? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Tucker Carlson is one of the main voices that is saying, no, we shouldn't do this. Now, Tucker Carlson is in the pockets of Qatar, so we know what his motivation is. But last night, he had Ted Cruz on his show. And Tucker was asking some random questions, and what's fascinating was this was a Rorschach test. This was do you think Tucker Carlson has gone crazy? Do you like Ted Cruz? What is it? Because he's asking some random questions, and he thinks they're gotcha questions for Ted Cruz. Let's start at the beginning of this mess.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population. At all? No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Okay. So that sounds like a gotcha, right? Hey, Luke, how many people were on the Death Star when you blew it up? Come on, guys. Really? This is what we're going with? This is your big question. How many people are there? Yeah, Tucker kind of made a you-know-what out of himself through the rest of this interview, getting things completely wrong, in fact. Here's an example.
But I just want to pull that thread because it's so important. I voted for Donald Trump. I campaigned for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He's our president. and we're on the cusp of a war. So if there's evidence that Iran paid hitmen to kill Donald Trump and is currently doing that, where's that? Like, what are you even talking? I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Where's the evidence? Who are these people? Why haven't they been arrested? Why are we not at war with Iran?
Okay. Stop right there, Tucker. First of all, there are people literally under indictment for this right now. Just pointing this out for a second, that president has talked about this himself.
It's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do, not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left.
There was a box. I had a box. I had a key to the box. I put the key in the box in an envelope. I left it for everybody. It's going to tell you how much money is in a chest that I've buried in the desert. But he's serious. There are people under indictment for this right now. People under indictment. Tucker's just making himself look ridiculous. And here's the other thing, by the way. Trump even called him out on it. In fact, Tucker knows he's losing this battle, and he knows that he's saying things in contrary to what Trump is saying. Listen to what happened in the Oval Office today.
Have you seen the Tucker Carlson and Senator Ted Cruz interview? It seems like this issue on whether or not the United States should strike is kind of dividing a lot of your supporters.
No, my supporters are for me. My supporters are America first. They make America great again. My supporters don't want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. Tucker's a nice guy. He called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is a nice guy. I mean, he's been with me for a long time. I'd say once the race was over, he's been with me ever since, right? But very simple. If they think that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me. But nobody thinks it's okay. People that don't want, I don't want to fight either. I'm not looking to fight. But if it's a choice between fighting and them having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do. Maybe we won't have to fight. Don't forget, we haven't been fighting. We add a certain amount of genius to everything, but we haven't been fighting.
And by the way, the president's right, because all the polling supports what the president just said. There's no big divide in MAGA, no matter how much people like Tucker Carlson are trying to make one. And the fact that he called the president to apologize, that means he's saying one thing for the clicks, and behind the scenes, he's saying something else. If you want to apologize to the president, one, you should 100% call him. 100%. But you know what else you should do? Correct it with your audience. When we make a mistake here, Bennett will call me, or when we make a mistake here, we share it with the audience. And we try to share it at the exact same time, knowing that hopefully the same people are listening that heard something the day before that might have been inaccurate. We do that. So then, Tucker, go on your show and do it. Otherwise, you're just disingenuous. What's this really about? Ted Cruz kind of summarized it last night during this interview.
Seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question: what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, like I'm an anti-Semite now.
Senator, you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually,
yeah, that is an actually really, really good question. Got another one, by the way. Why does Ted Cruz care so much about Israel? That's a fair question to ask for people who might be on the other side of this argument. Yeah, he summed that one up well, too.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of it, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. So you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Just that right there is the most snarky way to ask that question. You don't have the context. You don't have this. First of all, I'm sure Ted Cruz studies his Bible. We know that Ted Cruz studies his Bible, talks about it in podcasts, talk about it all the time. You know what? If you asked me to pull up that quote, and I'm a pretty religious fella, I wouldn't remember where it was. I would have to go look it up too. Actually, here's a little confession for my audience for a second. I love it when people quote scripture at me. One, I know it in the Hebrew. I'm not so good with it in the English from time to time. So it's funny when people say, well, don't you know, in Genesis verse 32, chapter 32, verse 12, it says this. I'm like, wait, hang on. Do the calculations in my head. What's the Hebrew of that? Can I get there quick enough? And I don't know the whole thing by heart. You want to get into a scripture quoting contest with me, I'm going to lose. That's not a gotcha question. I'm sorry, I don't have the book memorized. That's why we're called people of the book, not people of the memory. Right? If we're people of the memory, then I should have it memorized. People of the book, people of the Google. Fine, we'll go with one of those. No problem. But you're trying to make that a gotcha question? Really? It's because you're losing the argument.
Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what? Hold on. Define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding?
Okay, enough, Tucker. Just enough. Enough. You want to get into a Bible quoting match? Fine, get into a Bible quoting match. But Ted Cruz was right when he called it out. Why is he so obsessed over Israel and not China and not any of these other countries that Ted Cruz listed? Why is he solely focused on Israel? I'm beginning to see more and more why Fox News said, yeah, no more Tucker Carlson. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Doug in Spanaway. Doug, what's going on?
First, real quick on Tucker, I never was a big fan of him anyhow. I mean, I think the best thing Fox did was get him off there, and he kind of talked all over the place anyhow. But main reason I called, we absolutely need to go in there and take that nuclear site out. And I think the best way would be for Trump to just give him like a 48-hour grace to stop lobbing bombs into the cities of Israel, and if they don't, the next day start the campaign. And I'm sure Israel has some special forces that could go in there afterwards and make sure the place is, totally destroyed. You know?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Let's compare it to this for a second. Do you think we should have taken out Soleimani or not because he was head of the IRGC? Of course you do, Doug, right? But that's something the U.S. did, right? Absolutely, right? He was the worst. He died like a dog. Like that's Soleimani, right? Yeah. So do you think we should have dropped the mother of all bombs? This is no different.
Absolutely, and take out anybody that's even part of the head of the snake, and let Iran figure things out on their own. But and if they don't. If they keep being radical, we can just.
We got more bombs. We got a lot more bombs. We got a lot more airplanes, right? Leave it to the Iranian people. I don't think anybody wants boots on the ground. Doug, great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Ted in Gig Harbor says on the text line, Ari and Mike, using the B-2s, I'm sure a last resort, things to worry about. How do we verify the target is destroyed? If the mullahs run to Russia, who takes over? That said, the mullahs will not surrender unconditionally. They are left with no choice. We are the only nation on earth that can do this job. If we don't destroy the facility, we know absolutely that the mullahs will rebuild. That is unacceptable. All right, Ted, let me correct a few things here. One, Iran already ran to Russia, and Putin said, you are on your own. We're not dealing with this. So that was that. They're done. Russia's not getting involved. How do we verify the target is destroyed? Israel's pretty good at doing that. But yeah, the mullahs, they're not going to surrender unconditionally. What'll happen is even if they do surrender unconditionally, they'll go back to their people and say, we won! We won! Everybody, we won! That's the kind of people you're dealing with in Iran's leadership. Allison Olympia says, yes, the U.S. should be involved if Israel needs help ending the threat. Here from the 206, big no on U.S. getting involved with Iran, big yes on the U.S. defending Israel. Is that? Oh, so shooting down the missiles, I get what you're saying. You can shoot down the missiles but not bomb Iran. I get it. Here's one from the 360. Bomb Iranian nuclear sites. That's very good. Catherine says bombers. It should be history by now. Michael in Camino Island says blow them back to 1000 BC. Robin Lakewood says bomb Fordo and associated facilities. Exactly right. Exactly right. This one cracks me up. From the 425, why let Israel have all the fun? First, we should send in that bunker buster. Then we should get as many troops as we can. All right, I don't think I'm asking for that. And then troops on the ground to make sure we got the problem taken care of. And as soon as we verify that, turn Iran into a glass parking lot. Wow, guys. This one here from the 206. I stand with Israel. We need to support them and take down Iran and free the people. Yeah, that's something to think about, by the way. You look at the pictures from the 1970s, women could walk around with their hair uncovered. They could go to the beach in bikinis, whatever else. As soon as the Ayatollah took over, that was the end of that. Well, that's Jimmy Carter's legacy right there. Let's not forget something else. For those of you who may still be holdouts on this, they just recently attacked the United States. Aside from the assassination attempts on President Trump, aside from the plots to assassinate President Trump, which we now have people in custody for, they just fired rockets at the U.S. Embassy in Israel. That's what they were targeting. Luckily, I shouldn't say luckily, people were killed in the strike, but it hit close by, didn't hit the embassy itself. That's what we're talking about, guys. They've been blowing up through their proxies and through themselves directly. They've been coming after us. Anybody hear about what Hezbollah did to us? Who backed that? Iran, Hamas, all these other terrorist organizations, Iran itself, the Houthi rebels attacking our shipping. All of that is Iran. Literally yesterday, in their parliament, they were burning the American flag and chanting, "Death to America." I'm sure they just want to be our friends. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Jason in Lacey. Jason, what's up?
Hey, Ari, we agree on a lot of things, and I sort of agree with you on the action with Iran. I do believe that they need to be taken out, and along with that, I know that the Democrats are trying to fight Trump through trying to move all the powers back into the authority of Congress and not allowing him to just make these strikes. And up until 60, 70 years ago, that's how it was. You waged a war through Congress. They were the only ones that could do it, and you funded the war through war bonds. And somehow we've gotten away from that. And I really think the Democrats actually might have it right this time.
That's a fair point. What we've done instead is we don't declare war. What do we do instead? We have military operations. He's the commander-in-chief. He can order an operation. I don't think anybody wants the U.S. in a war with Iran. This is where you and I disagree a little bit here, Jason, okay? I don't want boots on the ground in Iran. I don't want nation building. I don't want regime change. I don't want any of that. The question is just, if Israel needs to borrow a B-2 bomber for one mission, what would you say to that?
Oh, I would totally agree. I think it should be a parking lot. But the fact is I think that if it's something that we are running, I honestly think that really needs to have some rein and some control, because we've gotten into a lot of conflicts over the past 30, 40 years that we kind of really didn't need to be in.
Jason, that is a 100% legitimate point. 100%. And I'll tell you something. I bet if you held this vote in Congress right now, you would win it. I bet you Trump would actually win this one, because nobody wants to be on the wrong side of history. And you'll see all the Democrats who vote against this thing. I bet he would win the vote. But here's something else to consider. And here's something to put a little horror in everybody's minds, even the people who are agreeing with me. I'm not concerned about how Iran launches missiles or any of that. What I'm concerned about is them activating terror cells that came through an open border. Terror cells that might be here in the U.S. already. That is my biggest concern. And if we're going to strap on Iran, are we prepared to defend against that? Because a death cult will be committed to dying for their cult. That's what I'm worried about. Jason, great call, great discussion. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, looks like the feds are taking action against Antifa in Portland. Hey, help! Come up to Seattle. Please come here. We'll talk about that plus a whole lot more when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just another apology for the fact that our video camera is out today. Don't worry, we'll have it working tomorrow. I know exactly what the problem is. I just can't fix it in the middle of the show. But you can still listen on the live stream, which is over on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and, of course, over on X. Of course, the best way to always listen to the show is right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Mike in Everett. Mike, what's up, man?
I think we need at least 3 special bunker busters with 1 Moab.
Yep, I think you're right.
Let me be very specific about where these should be placed. The first one is a bunker buster right on their main government headquarters with the Moab right after, so let them find where the government was. Hopefully Parliament is in session. Number 2, we can't allow them to have that 3rd reactor they got going. If there was ever a poster child for the question of who would be crazy enough to set off a major dirty bomb, it's the Iranians.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this is the main one we need to do, and we must not forget.
Yep, I completely agree. Got to take care of all that kind of stuff.
Money.
Mm-hmm.
They have so much money over there, and it's in the Bank of Iran, and it needs to be eliminated. If we need to, whatever we do, we need to take, if they still have pallets of cash, those need to be buried forever. I know that they have changed a lot into gold, and they're really big on gold. Whatever we do, and wherever they're hiding their gold, and whatever their version of Fort Knox is, we need to drop a bunker buster on there and make them mine it out just like in the old days.
Oh, I agree. I think this is all good stuff. You should work for the government, sir.
I used to.
I figured that was coming.
I was one of Uncle Sam's misguided children.
I was going to say, it sounds like you used to. Appreciate your service, Mike. Appreciate the suggestions. Appreciate the call. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. You know who had the worst take on this, by the way? Whoopi Goldberg. Yeah, that's right. Whoopi Goldberg. Want to hear what she had to say about this today?
Listen,
right?
here's the thing. Let's not do that, because if we start with that, we have been known in this country to tie gay folks to the car.
I'm sorry, but where the Iranian regime is today.
Wait a second. Did you just compare bombing Iran to homophobic bigotry? Do you know what they do to people in Iran who are homosexuals? Do you know what they do to people who are members of the LGBTQIA plus minus sign people? Do you know what they do over there? Okay, where else is this crazy going?
I'm sorry. They used to just keep hanging black people. So
it is not even the same. I couldn't step during this.
Wait. You're comparing what happened. The ignorance, the stupidity. Oh, Whoopi Goldberg. She is some special kind of stupid. I will tell you that. Speaking of terrorists, by the way, we've got our own problem with domestic terrorists. So this one here was fascinating to me. This article from the Post-Millennial, headline, Portland residents beg Antifa not to destroy property during anti-ICE riots. I kid you not. They're begging Antifa not to destroy their stuff. Ongoing protests led by anti-ICE activists in Portland have escalated in recent weeks, leaving many local residents dealing with the consequences of repeated confrontations between demonstrators and law enforcement. The latest wave began on June 8th when activists blocked the driveway of a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility. Since then, clashes have continued across the city. 22 people have been arrested this month in connection with anti-ICE demonstrations on various criminal allegations. Gray's Landing, a low-income apartment complex housing elderly residents, veterans, and families, is located near the ICE building and has taken steps to shield itself from being caught in the conflict. Signs reading, "Please do not vandalize. We are a nonprofit. We are not associated with the ICE building. We believe everyone deserves a place to call home," have been posted on the ground floor windows. Residents have endured noise from bullhorns, honking cars, flashbang grenades, along with graffiti, vandalism, transit delays, and chemical irritants used by federal agents to disperse crowds. When you have to beg, you're already in trouble. But you know the difference between us here in Seattle and them down in Portland? The feds are charging some of these guys down in Portland who've been arrested. The Department of Justice has filed criminal charges against 2 Portland Antifa members who allegedly assaulted federal police officers during an anti-ICE riot on Saturday. One of the assailants allegedly used a sharpened wooden stake to strike an officer in the head, while the other accused subject reportedly assaulted an officer, kicked him, deployed tear gas canisters toward the other federal agents. So at least the feds are now prosecuting these guys, and these are well-known Antifa activists. Giovanni Joseph Bello, 21 of Gresham, has been charged with felony assault of a federal officer. According to the criminal complaint, he rushed in to interfere with the arrest of a fellow rioter, allegedly used a pointed wooden stake. Well, you think you're Buffy the Vampire Slayer or something? To strike the back of the head of a federal agent. And there's video evidence of all of this. Andy No's been all over this guy because apparently he remembers him from the previous riots. Joshua Ames Cartret of Oregon City has been charged with misdemeanor assault of a federal officer. He has a lengthy criminal history, has been accused of using his hands to push a federal officer and kick multiple deployed tear gas canisters towards other federal agents. So he's in federal court on charges also. When are we going to get some federal charges here? You know what the problem is? We don't have a U.S. attorney here in Seattle for Western Washington yet. We've been begging for this for so long. I think what we really need to do is reach out to the Justice Department again and ask for a request for comment. I haven't done this in a few weeks. I should reach out again and say, hey, guys, when is a cavalry coming with regard to a U.S. attorney here in Washington? Because we really desperately need one. I think I'll drop that email tonight. Time to have a conversation with them about that. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Speaking of the Antifa riots, some local Antifa journalists are encouraging people to riot, and a whole lot more. We'll tell you what they're up to now when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45 is your next chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and tickets to the Bremerton Air Show. By the way, there's going to be a lot of awesome stuff there. I wonder if there's going to be some B-2s freshly returned from, I don't know, somewhere in the Middle East. Maybe some other planes, I don't know, maybe a squadron of F-18s that may be maneuvered straight down this trench to the point you're seeing now, dropping in a few bombs on Fordo. I don't know. We can hail them as conquering heroes. Make sure you're listening at 5:45 for your chance to join us at the Bremerton Air Show in July. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, this one Beth sent me over on X during the break. I've seen this one a lot. Some of you have sent this one to me. This is not the first time I'm seeing it. So it's from Dr. Eli David, who posts on social media a lot of pro-Israel stuff, a lot of what's going on with the war right now. He says Trump will attack Fordo within the next 24 hours. Why is he saying this? You're going to love it. Because of the Jewish date, the Hebrew calendar date. Why? So right now, over there, it's the next day because our days start at night. It's night over there. It's deep in the night. It's the 23rd of the Jewish month of Sivan. In the book of Esther, Persian king Ahasuerus reversed Haman's genocidal decree and issued a new edict on the 23rd of Sivan, allowing the Jews across the Persian Empire to defend themselves. So that's the Purim story. Queen Esther says Haman wants to kill all of us. Ahasuerus says, no, you Jews can defend yourselves, and lets them go ahead and do it. So they just had a no kings protest, right? Let's say, for sake of argument, Donald Trump is the king. He's the greatest king, right? And he says, yeah, you Jews can go defend yourselves. Imagine if they take out Fordo today. You know why else this would be funny? Because Hamas, Hezbollah, all these other terrorist groups love attacking Israel on Jewish holidays. Now, it's not a Jewish holiday tomorrow. Yes, it's not. But Purim, we celebrate it different. We celebrate the day the lots were actually pulled in the Purim story. We don't celebrate this day itself. But it would be pretty entertaining if the tables were turned and that attack happened tonight. I think that would be, that would be Thursday. When is it right now? Today's not the 23rd. Today's the 19th. So we're talking about later in the week. Maybe this weekend. Maybe this weekend. That's what it is. Yes, I had to double check my dates. Yes, maybe this weekend is what we're talking about. This whole thing would be very, very entertaining. Meanwhile, back on the text line, I love that you guys are all up about this. They say a secondary factor resulting from giving Iranian nuke facilities a thumping, other bad actors like North Korea will have an additional reason to consider real repercussions before they begin playing their next round of little games. That's according to Just Bob. Yes, absolutely right. This one here from the 360, remove the threat now. We have the right to protect federal facilities here in L.A. or Israel. Exactly right. Exactly right. This one from Michael in Camino Island. It's not a war. It's an operation. This one here from Rob in Lakewood. Maybe the Ayatollah will seek asylum in Londonistan, the UK. Very good. Very good. Switching gears now. So these two fools, Ashley Nurbovig and Hannah Krieg, who got fired from The Stranger, how much do you have to be terrible at your job to get fired from The Stranger? Seattle's far-left glorified blog at this point. So they started their own podcast, which, remember yesterday we were talking about how they were celebrating the death of ICE agents, calling for the death of ICE agents. You remember that nonsense? So they post something crazy today. They posted a flyer. Apparently today at Cal Anderson Park, in 20 minutes, there's going to be another mostly peaceful riot. So what are they protesting today? No war on Iran. United against fascism, Zionism, genocide, and dictatorship. Do you want to tell them or should I? Forget the Zionism thing. I know usually you guys are going to assume I'm going to jump down their throats on that one. No. So no war on Iran, and you're fighting against fascism and genocide and dictatorship. Well, should we tell you what Iran is? Hang on. Anybody want to tell me? The Ayatollah, it's, yeah, okay. All right, you're all on the same page now. You're all following me on that? Great. And who have they been threatening to kill this whole time? Oh, right, the Jews. Doesn't that sound like a genocide? Yeah. So bravo to the brilliant people over at The Burner. Just unbelievable. There is a comment on this here. You don't have to be ignorant or stupid to be a leftist, but it helps. Very good. Very, very good. Meanwhile, speaking of stupid, Seattle Times had a very dumb op-ed by their worst writer, Naomi Ishisaka. Anytime I find out she writes a column, I can't wait to read her columns because they are so dumb. I am licking my lips. I am smacking my chops. I am rubbing my hands together. I am getting all ready to read this. What's the headline? When Trump turns troops on people in Seattle, where will you be? Okay. First of all, can we focus on this for a second? Well, you mean the Antifa rioters who are destroying the federal building in downtown Seattle? I like to think I won't be with Antifa. Just putting that out there for a second. In fact, have you seen anybody who was arrested who shouldn't have been arrested during these riots? Anybody? I see a lot of politicians trying to get themselves arrested at press conferences. I don't see them trying to get themselves arrested at riots because they don't want to be down there any more than you do. They don't want to be in the middle of all that. What does Naomi write? It looks like President Trump is itching to do to Seattle what he has done to Los Angeles over the past week. You mean get the rioting to stop? Calling in more than 4,000 National Guard troops over the objection of California's governor, and then calling in 700 Marines to the city, purportedly to quell protest against ICE raids, has put the whole country in a new era of authoritarianism. Oh, really? Okay. Hey, Naomi, did you speak out against 975 days of Jay Inslee? Just yes? No? Oh, right. No, you had nothing to say about that. Donald Trump has made no secret he intends to do the same for other cities he deems deserving, saying they will be met with equal or greater force as being seen in Los Angeles. He also said he would certainly invoke the Insurrection Act if he deemed it necessary, allowing him to use U.S. troops domestically, which would be a massive escalation in his desire to emulate the despots worldwide he so admires. All right, crazy lady. He's literally taking out the Ayatollah as we speak. Man, people are stupid. Then, she says, in an ode to his other favorite autocrats, Trump held a long-desired military parade on Saturday, purportedly to honor the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, but timed to correspond to his 79th birthday. Yes, his parents purposely conceived him 80 years ago so that his birthday would line up with the anniversary of the U.S. military, knowing one day he would be elected, and he gets to be the president to celebrate the U.S. Army's birthday. Yeah, they also conspired to have Joe Biden be the one who actually applied for the permits on that. Wow. There is no accounting for how stupid a person can be. And anytime you guys say, oh, the Seattle Times, their editorial board is so right-wing, they're so Republican, they're so conservative, I want you to remember they print garbage like this that's not even factually accurate. Ugh, what garbage the Seattle Times is. I shouldn't even be giving them the oxygen on the station. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, and tickets to the Bremerton Air Show. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, how about some good news headlines for you? This one I thought was entertaining. Apparently, Ben Shapiro was at the Vatican today and met with the Pope. And when you meet with the Pope, apparently you're supposed to bring a gift to the Pope. Now, I assumed because the picture is taken where you see the two of them facing each other, and Ben Shapiro's got his black yarmulke on, and the Pope has his white skull cap on, whatever you guys call that thing. I figured they're both White Sox fans. He probably gave him a White Sox yarmulke to go with the Pope outfit, right? That was what? No, actually, I wasn't too far off. I noticed when I zoomed in on the picture, he's giving him a baseball in a glass case, in a little glass case like the ones I have around my house. So what did he write? It was an honor to meet His Holiness in Vatican City today and thank him for standing up for biblical values in a chaotic world, and to present him with a signed 2005 White Sox World Series baseball I had in my collection. We're both fans. As I told Pope Leo, he's Catholic and I'm Jewish, but the 2005 White Sox World Series victory is a miracle we can all agree on. In fact, do you remember when he became Pope? That video footage was circulating out there of him in the crowd at the White Sox World Series. That's right. That is pretty awesome. Meanwhile, switching gears for a minute here, this one from the Hollywood Reporter. So everybody hates the George Lucas updates to Star Wars. Now, you forget the George Lucas updates to Star Wars. Yes, he added in little aliens and little critters and weird-looking Jabba the Hutt and Greedo shooting first and all this other stuff. But he also cleaned up the movie. And the stuff that was old looked pretty spectacular. It really, really did. Well, apparently they found a long-lost version of the 1977 version, and everybody said it looks terrible. So according to the Hollywood Reporter, a long-lost original print of 1977 Star Wars was recovered from an archive and screened for a group of cinema aficionados and diehard fans. An audience was finally permitted to watch the first released version of the film, nearly perfectly preserved and unfaded, that George Lucas famously suppressed from being publicly shown on a big screen for 47 years. The British Film Institute event was introduced by Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy, who joked that the screening was not illegal. She says, what you're going to see is, in fact, the first print. And I'm not even sure there's another one quite like it. The result? An attending film critic from The Telegraph, who attended the screening last week, admitted the unaltered original looks terrible by modern standards. While fans understandably tend to focus on Lucas's most intrusive creative moves, adding the jarring CG version of Jabba the Hutt having Greedo shoot first, stuffing distracting CG creatures and droids into Mos Eisley, the amount of subsequent polish and tweaks over the years is so extensive that many aspects of the original look just as noticeably fake as the egregious CG. Writer Robbie Cullen said, I felt like I was watching a completely different film, who called the print a joyously craggy, grubby, solidly carpentered spectacle that looks more like a fancy dress than a grand sci-fi epic. Every scene had visceral sense of watching actual people photographed doing actual things with sets and props that have been physically sawn and glued into place. Yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like if you watch those originals. So that's kind of funny, by the way, that they really did. They've been craving this thing for so long, wanting this thing so long, and now they don't even like it. A vlogger for Cinema Savvy, George Aldridge, said he's seen A New Hope at least 100 times, and the screening was incredibly special, but likewise made him realize there are many great changes to the Star Wars films. It's the ones we dislike that have always overshadowed them. He, too, noted the print was so radically different, it felt like watching the film for the first time. So, yeah, be careful what you wish for, guys. You might get the Snyder cut of the Justice League. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show at the Bremerton Airport on July 13th. Join KVI at the Bremerton Air Show on Sunday, July 13th. We'll all be there. It'll be a lot of fun. Running both July 12th and 13th, the Bremerton Air Show is back for another year of modern military aircraft, classic planes, and world-class performers. This year's theme is Mustang Mania, featuring the largest gathering of P-51 Mustangs in the Pacific Northwest. Get tickets and learn more at bremertonairshow.com. That's bremertonairshow.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show at Bremerton Airport on July 13th, plus free parking. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Who knows? We might be giving a hero's welcome to certain B-2 bombers that come back for the Bremerton Air Show. You never know. You never know. A man can dream, can't he? That's going to do it for us today. Fear not, my friends. We'll be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.